To rescue his cherished first love, my husband personally pushed the pregnant me toward the out-of-control freight truck. Following the miscarriage, he forcibly administered hypnosis and cognitive restructuring to erase my resentment. 3 months later, I awoke, with my memories restored, yet entirely devoid of affection. Observing him kneeling on the ground, weeping profusely and begging for forgiveness, I only felt intense nausea surging in my stomach. Stop kneeling, I truly experience physiological revulsion toward you. This belated profound affection is worth less than weeds. When I awoke, rain was falling outside the window. The raindrops pattered against the glass pane, producing faint sounds akin to a gentle knock on the door. I lay on the pristine white hospital bed, staring at the chandelier on the ceiling, my mind utterly blank. "Stella, you're awake?" Ethan's voice came from beside me, carrying evident joy. He grasped my hand, his warm palm enveloping my cold fingertips. "That's wonderful, the doctor said you're fine." I was truly worried about you. I turned my head to look at him. His face was etched with exhaustion, his eyes bloodshot, and his chin sported a bluish stubble. He appeared genuinely haggard, as if he hadn't slept well for days. Yet, gazing at him, I felt nothing in my heart. "Who are you?" I asked. Ethan was stunned, then laughed. "Don't joke around, I'm your husband." "Oh." I withdrew my gaze and continued staring at the ceiling. "I know." The atmosphere suddenly turned peculiar. Ethan clearly noticed my anomaly. He leaned closer, his eyes filled with cautious probing. "Stella, do you remember what happened before?" "I remember," I said. "I remember everything." His pupils contracted abruptly. Observing his gradually stiffening expression, I pulled a smile at the corner of my mouth. "I remember 3 months ago, when I was 7 months pregnant, Clara was in a car accident. To save her, you pushed me toward the out-of-control truck. I remember my child died, I lost a lot of blood, and the doctor said I nearly died on the operating table. I also remember that, taking advantage of my weakness, you sought a psychologist to hypnotize me, making me forget all of this." Ethan's face instantly turned ashen. "Stella, But strangely, I interrupted him, my tone as calm as discussing today's meal. "Although I recall these events, I feel nothing. I neither hate you nor love you. Looking at you is like looking at a stranger." "No, it's not like that." Ethan's voice began to tremble. "Stella, listen to my explanation. The situation that day was complicated. I didn't mean to." I turned my head to look at him. "So what?" "What? So what do you want to say?" I asked. "Do you want me to forgive you?" Ethan gritted his teeth, his eyes reddening. "I know I was wrong, I truly know I was wrong. But I had no choice, Clara was in grave danger at the time and I panicked." "You're still mentioning her," I interrupted him. "Ethan, you're truly remarkable. You killed my child, and now you're making excuses for your beloved in front of me?" "I'm not making excuses for her." Ethan's voice suddenly rose. "I just want to tell you that the situation that day was truly complex. Moreover, hypnotizing you was for your own good, I didn't want you to live in pain." I laughed. Truly laughed. But the smile did not reach my eyes. "Ethan, do you know?" I said. "Every word you're saying now makes me feel nauseous." As soon as the words fell, a strong wave of nausea suddenly surged from my stomach. I abruptly sat up, rushed to the ward's bathroom, and vomited violently over the toilet. My stomach had long been empty, all I vomited was acid and bile. The sensation was utterly dreadful, as if my body was desperately rejecting something, attempting to purge all the filth. Ethan followed, trying to support me, but as soon as his hand touched my shoulder, I reflexively shook him off. "Don't touch me." My voice was hoarse. "You make me feel dirty." Ethan's hand froze in midair, his facial expression indefinable, whether shock or pain. After a long while, he regained his voice. "Stella. Get out," I said. "I want to be alone." "But your body." "Get out." I roared. This was the first time since recovering my memory that I raised my voice at him. Ethan was clearly startled. He opened his mouth but ultimately said nothing, turning and leaving the bathroom. The moment the door closed, the entire world finally fell silent. I supported myself on the sink and stood up, looking at myself in the mirror. The woman in the mirror had a pale complexion and vacant eyes, resembling a walking corpse. I reached out to touch my face, my fingertips were cold. So this is what I look like now. So this is what it feels like to lose the capacity for love. On the day of discharge, Ethan drove to pick me up. His car was a black Mercedes. I used to love sitting in the passenger seat, listening to him talk about interesting things at the company. Back then, I felt that as long as I was with him, anywhere was happiness. But now, I sat in the back seat. Separated by an entire space, it was as if divided by a whole world. Ethan looked at me through the rearview mirror. Stella, why are you sitting in the back? Leave the front seat for Clara, I said. She should be more accustomed to sitting there. Ethan's hands tightly gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles turning white. I have no contact with Clara anymore. Oh, I responded. That's your business. Stella. He finally couldn't hold back, slamming on the brakes, and the car stopped by the roadside. He turned to look at me, his eyes red. What exactly do you want? What must I do for you to forgive me? Forgive you? I raised my eyes. Ethan, have you misunderstood something? I don't hate you, truly not. But that doesn't mean I'll forgive you, nor does it mean I still love you. Then did you ever love me? He asked, his voice laced with despair. Did you love me before? This question stunned me for a moment. Had I loved him? I must have, right? Otherwise, I wouldn't have been so foolish as to abandon my career for him, resign from a high-paying job at a foreign enterprise, and willingly become a homemaker. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been so stupid as to go to the hospital alone for prenatal checkups when he was overwhelmed with work, study pregnancy knowledge alone, and fantasize alone about what life would be like after the child was born. But that affection died the moment he pushed me toward the truck. The hypnosis only sealed the memories, unable to seal the already deceased emotions. I did love you, I said. But that's in the past tense. Ethan's tears suddenly fell. A man in his 30s, an adult, sat in the driver's seat crying like a child. His shoulders trembled as he sobbed. I'm sorry, Stella, I'm sorry. I truly know I was wrong. I shouldn't have treated you that way, shouldn't have. I was just momentarily confused, truly just momentarily confused. I looked at him, my heart eerily calm. Ethan, can you take me back now? I asked. I'm tired. He raised his head, his face streaked with tears, looking at me. Stella, please, please give me another chance. I'll treat you well, I'll spend a lifetime compensating you. No need, I said. Let's divorce. The air in the car seemed to freeze at that moment. Ethan widened his eyes, looking at me in disbelief. What did you say? Divorce, I repeated. Are these 3 words hard to understand? No, he flatly refused. I won't divorce you. Then let's go to court, I said. The outcome will be the same anyway. Stella. Ethan almost roared. Do you have to treat me this way? I've already apologized, I've admitted my mistake. What more do you want? I looked at him and suddenly laughed. Ethan, do you know what you resemble now? Like a child who did something wrong, thinking an apology can gloss over it. But you forgot, you killed my child. That was my child too, he roared. Do you think I'm not in pain? Do you think I don't blame myself? These 3 months, I've lived in a nightmare every day, I've regretted every day. So what? I asked. Does your pain offset my pain? Does your self-blame bring my child back to life? Ethan was speechless. I pushed open the car door. I'll take a taxi back myself. Wait. Ethan tried to grab me, but I had already gotten out. He chased after me, blocking me by the roadside. Stella, don't go, listen to me. Move aside. I won't let you go, he said. You're my wife, you should come home, back to my side. Ethan, I interrupted him. If you touch me again, I'll call the police. His hand froze in midair, eventually dropping powerlessly. I turned and walked into the rain. Behind me came his voice, hoarse and desperate. Stella, you'll regret this. You definitely will regret this. I didn't look back. Because I knew I wouldn't regret it. The only thing I regretted in this life was ever loving Ethan. I moved out of the marital home I shared with Ethan. That house was bought when we married, located in a high-end community in the city center, with exquisite renovations and complete furnishings. I once thought I would spend my life there, raise our children there, and grow old with Ethan there. But now, every corner there made me nauseous. I rented a single apartment. It wasn't large, but it was clean. The landlord was a woman in her 50s, very kind. Upon hearing I had just left a bad relationship, she proactively reduced my rent. Young lady, take good care of yourself when you're out alone, she patted my shoulder. Men can't be relied on, you still have to rely on yourself. I nodded, thinking, that's absolutely right. On the first night in my new home, I sat alone on the balcony, watching the city lights outside. My phone vibrated incessantly, all calls from Ethan. I didn't even look, hanging up directly, and finally just blacklisted him. The next day, he appeared at my door. Stella, open the door. His voice came through the door panel. I know you're in there, can we talk? I sat on the sofa, looking at the book in my hand, ignoring him. Stella, please, just give me a chance to talk to you properly. His tone was nearly pleading. I truly know I was wrong, I shouldn't have treated you that way. I turned a page in the book. Stella. He began pounding on the door. What exactly do you want? Are you going to ignore me for life like this? I still didn't respond. He stood outside the door for a full 3 hours, from evening to late night. During that time, he kept talking, saying how much he regretted, how much he loved me, and that he was willing to do anything for me. Finally, probably tired, his voice gradually lowered. Stella, I'll leave for today. But I'll come again tomorrow, and the day after, I'll keep coming until you're willing to see me. The footsteps faded away, and the hallway finally fell quiet. I put down the book in my hand, walked to the door, and looked out through the peephole. The corridor was empty, with only the voice-activated light flashing a few times in the darkness before extinguishing. I leaned against the door and closed my eyes. If it were the old me, hearing him say that, I would surely have softened, surely thought he truly knew he was wrong, and surely considered giving him a chance. But the current me only found it laughable. Ethan, oh Ethan, do you think deep affection can move me? Do you think kneeling long enough will make me turn back? You're wrong. Utterly wrong. Sure enough, he came again the next day. This time, he brought breakfast, my former favorite steamed buns and soy milk. He placed the items at the door and gently knocked. Stella, I know you haven't had breakfast yet, I bought your favorite steamed buns. Eat them while they're hot, they're not good when cold. I listened from inside without moving. He waited outside for a while, seeing no response, and said, then I'll leave first, remember to eat breakfast. After he left, I opened the door and looked at the breakfast on the ground. The steam from the plastic bag had dissipated, but the steamed buns looked still fresh. I bent down to pick it up and threw it directly into the trash bin. On the 3rd day, he sent flowers. On the 4th day, he sent books I liked. On the 5th day, he sent a handwritten apology letter, the paper full of his tear stains. I threw all these things away. On the 7th day, he finally knocked on my door again. This time, I opened it because the property management called, saying residents complained he was disturbing the hallway order. Stella. The moment he saw me, hope lit up in his eyes. You finally agreed to see me. I was complained about, I said. Can you stop coming? I can't, he said. Unless you agree to talk with me. There's nothing to talk about. Then about the divorce, he said. I won't agree to divorce, but if you really want to, at least give me a reason. I looked at him. Reason? You killed my child, isn't that reason enough? Stella, that was an accident, he said urgently. I really didn't mean to, the situation that day. You're mentioning Clara again? I interrupted him. Ethan, you're truly remarkable. Don't you think that every time you mention her, you're rubbing salt in my wound? He was stunned. I continued, do you know why I have no feelings for you anymore? Because during the hypnosis, the psychologist suggested to my body that you are dangerous. So now, seeing you makes me want to vomit, and touching you makes me feel dirty. This is a physiological response, not something I can control. Then we can seek treatment, he said. I can accompany you to see a doctor, we can undergo psychological therapy together. Ethan, can't you understand human language? I said. I don't want treatment, I don't want any relationship with you. I just want a divorce and then to start a new life. No, he stubbornly shook his head. I won't let go. Stella, you're my wife, you always will be. I took a deep breath, striving to suppress the irritation in my heart. Then what do you want? Give me 3 months, he said. 3 months' time to prove to you that I've truly changed, that I'm truly worthy of your forgiveness. If after 3 months, you still insist on divorce, I'll sign. I looked at him, his eyes full of expectation and humility. Fine, I said. 3 months. A smile appeared on his face, the kind of relieved smile. Thank you, Stella, thank you for giving me a chance. But there's a condition, I said. During these 3 months, you can't come find me, can't call, can't send messages. After 3 months, we'll talk about the divorce. His smile froze, but... This is my condition, I said. If you agree, 3 months. If not, let's go to court now. He was silent for a long time, finally nodding. Fine, I agree. I closed the door. Through the door panel, I heard him softly say outside, Stella, I'll make you fall in love with me again. I leaned against the door, pulling a sarcastic smile at the corner of my mouth. Ethan, oh Ethan, do you really think affection can be revived? Do you really think 3 months' time can compensate for the sins you've committed? You're too naive. I agreed to 3 months not to give you a chance, but to give myself time. Time to prepare for counterattack. After the 3-month agreement began, Ethan indeed didn't appear again. But he switched to another way to continue entangling me. Every morning, a bunch of fresh roses would appear at my door. Attached to the flowers were cards with various affectionate words. Stella, good morning. I miss you a lot today too. Stella, have you had breakfast? Remember to take care of yourself. Stella, it's cooling down outside, wear more clothes. I threw all these flowers away and tore the cards to shreds. But he was tireless. A week later, I discovered a large sum of money in my bank account. I checked, it was transferred by Ethan. The note read, Stella, this is my salary for this month, all for you. I transferred the money back the same way. A few days later, my phone received a text message from a number not Ethan's, but I knew it was him. The content was simple, Stella, I miss you. I deleted the message and blacklisted that number too. But soon, messages came from new numbers. He was like an obsessive madman, using every means to approach me. I had to admit, if it were someone else in a different scenario, such pursuit might be touching. But this person was Ethan, the executioner who personally killed my child. Every gesture of goodwill from him reminded me of what he had done to me. I began preparing for the divorce. First, I contacted a lawyer friend to consult on the divorce litigation process. The lawyer, after hearing my experience, was silent for a long time. Stella, she said. Do you have evidence? Can you prove he intentionally pushed you at the time? No, I said. That road had no surveillance, and no eyewitnesses. What about the hypnosis? I have a recording, I said. After waking up in the hospital, I secretly recorded Ethan and that psychologist's conversation. That's manageable then, the lawyer said. Illegal hypnosis constitutes an infringement on personal rights. You can use this as a reason for divorce. And if the evidence is sufficient, you can also demand compensation. I don't want compensation, I said. I just want the divorce. Why? The lawyer was puzzled. In your situation, you could at least get half of his assets. I smiled. I'm not short of money. I just want to completely sever ties with him. The lawyer looked at me, her eyes somewhat complex. Stella, I've known you for so many years. This is the first time I've seen you like this. You've changed. People always change, I said. Especially after experiencing certain things. Leaving the law firm, I went to the hospital. This time, to find the psychologist who hypnotized me. I had checked his information. He was called Marcus, in his 40s, somewhat renowned in the field. But he had a blemish. He had once had his license revoked for irregular operations, later restored through unknown means. Ethan sought out such a person. I scheduled an appointment in Marcus's clinic. When I saw him, he clearly paused. Miss Stella? He asked tentatively. Why are you here? Dr. Marcus, let's talk. I sat opposite him. About the hypnosis you performed on me 3 months ago. His face changed. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't know? I took out my phone and played a recording. Then what about this? The recording played Ethan and Marcus's conversation. Dr. Marcus, are you sure this hypnosis will succeed? Rest assured, Mr. Ethan, I've been in this field for so many years and never failed. As long as you follow my instructions, Miss Stella will completely forget that incident and believe you've always been happy. Will she have any after effects? There might be some, like occasional headaches or insomnia. But these are minor issues. As long as she isn't strongly stimulated, the hypnosis won't fail. Good, then I'll leave it to you. Mr. Ethan is too polite, as long as the money is in place. The recording ended, and the clinic fell into a terrifying silence. Sweat beaded on Marcus's forehead. Miss Stella, this is a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding? I sneered. Dr. Marcus, illegal hypnosis is unlawful. You should know that better than I do. If I hand this recording to the medical association, what do you think will happen? What do you want? He asked through gritted teeth. It's simple, I said. Write a detailed report explaining the entire process of hypnotizing me, including how Ethan commissioned you, the specific methods of hypnosis, and the possible consequences. Then sign it and notarize it. Why should I do that? Because if you don't, I said. I'll go report you to the medical association right now. Then, not only will your license be revoked, but you may also face criminal charges. Marcus's face turned livid. He struggled for a long time but ultimately compromised. After all, compared to going to prison, writing a report was nothing. When I obtained that report, I couldn't describe the feeling in my heart. This report was the strongest evidence for my divorce. But at the same time, it was like a knife, cutting open my wounds one by one, allowing me to see clearly those sealed memories. The report was very detailed. It described the entire hypnotic process, how Ethan, during my weakness, had Marcus perform deep hypnosis on me, how false scenarios were implanted in my memory to make me believe the child was lost due to an accident, how suggestions were made for me to maintain trust and dependence on Ethan. After reading this report, I truly understood what Ethan had done to me. He not only killed my child but also attempted to erase my memories, destroy my will, and turn me into a puppet that only depended on him. This man deserved damnation. The 3-month deadline arrived. That day was overcast, the sky gray, as if it could rain at any moment. I wore a black dress, applied light makeup, carried my bag, and walked out the door. Ethan was already waiting downstairs. He was dressed in a sharp suit, holding a bouquet of champagne roses. Seeing me come out, he immediately approached, his face bearing a cautious smile. Stella, these 3 months, I've thought of you every day. Oh, I took the flowers. Let's go. Where to? The Civil Affairs Bureau, I said. To handle the divorce procedures. The smile on his face instantly froze. Stella, you. 3 months are up, I said. According to the agreement, you should sign. But. His voice carried panic. But these 3 months, I've been trying hard, I've been changing, don't you feel it at all? No, I said. Let's go, don't waste time. No. He suddenly grabbed my hand. Stella, I won't divorce you. Ethan, are you going back on your word? He gritted his teeth, his eyes red. I just want you to give me a bit more time. I know 3 months aren't enough, but I'm really trying. Enough. I shook off his hand. Ethan, you're truly ridiculous. 3 months ago, you said that in just 3 months, you could make me fall in love with you again. Now 3 months are up, and you say the time isn't enough. So tell me, how long would be enough? 3 years? 30 years? He couldn't speak. Forget it. I turned to leave. Since you won't go to the Civil Affairs Bureau, we'll see each other in court. Wait. He chased up and blocked me. Stella, I beg you, don't divorce, okay? I truly know I was wrong, I swear, I'll never hurt you again. Ethan, move aside. I won't, he stubbornly said. Unless you promise not to divorce. I looked at him and suddenly laughed. Ethan, do you know? Your current appearance reminds me of a term. What? A pesky dog. His face instantly turned pale. I continued, when I loved you back then, what did you treat me as? You treated me as a tool that could be sacrificed at any time. Now that I don't love you, you've clung on instead. If this isn't a pesky dog, what is it? I'm not. His voice trembled. I just love you too much. Love? I sneered. Ethan, are you worthy of uttering the word love? As soon as the words fell, that familiar nausea surged again. I covered my mouth, bent over, and dry heaved violently. Ethan panicked, trying to support me, but as soon as he touched me, I reflexively pushed him away. Don't touch me, I gasped. You make me sick. This sentence was like a knife, stabbing deeply into his heart. He froze in place, tears suddenly falling. A man in his 30s, an adult, stood on the street crying without any regard for image. Stella, he sobbed. Can you not treat me this way? I know I was wrong, I truly know I was wrong. So what? I straightened up, looking at him coldly. Do your tears bring my child back to life? He was speechless. I bypassed him and continued walking forward. Behind me came his desperate voice, Stella, what exactly do you want me to do? Tell me, tell me. I stopped, turned back, I want you to disappear from my life. After saying that, I left without looking back. Behind me came his heart-wrenching cries, echoing on the empty street. Passers-by turned their heads, looking at him with curious and sympathetic gazes. But I didn't care. I only knew that I had finally said the words hidden in my heart for so long. Ethan, disappear from my life. You don't deserve to stay here. The divorce litigation officially began. The court accepted my case, with the hearing scheduled for a month later. During this month, Ethan used every means to try to stop this divorce. He hired the best legal team, attempting to prove in court that our marriage still had room for salvage. He contacted my family, hoping they could persuade me to change my mind. He even found my friends, asking them to convey that he truly knew he was wrong. But it was useless. My attitude was firm, so firm that everyone thought I had become a different person. Stella, do you really have to do this? My mom cried on the phone. Ethan really loves you, and he knows he was wrong, can't you give him another chance? Mom, I said. He killed your grandchild. The other end of the phone fell silent. After a long while, my mom sobbed, I know all of it. But the child is already gone, continuing like this won't help. Ethan has a solid family background and is sincere toward you, what will you do after divorcing him? I laughed, Mom, are you worried about me? Or about losing a wealthy son-in-law? You child, how can you speak like that? My mom got anxious. Isn't this for your own good? I don't need it, I said. Mom, if you really care for me, don't persuade me anymore. After saying that, I hung up. The phone rang again soon, this time it was my dad. His tone was calmer than my mom's, but the persuasive intent was evident. Stella, I know Ethan was wrong, but you have to think about your future. If you divorce now, what will people outside say about you? I don't care, I said. But I do, my dad said. I don't want my daughter to be pointed at and gossiped about. Dad, I said. I'd rather be pointed at and gossiped about than live with a murderer. He's not a murderer, my dad sighed. That was an accident. Accident? I sneered. Dad, if one day someone used accident as an excuse to kill your daughter, would you still say that? The other end was silent for a long time. Finally, my dad only said, decide for yourself. After hanging up, I threw the phone aside, leaned back on the sofa, and closed my eyes. My family didn't understand me, my friends didn't understand me, everyone thought I was too heartless, too cold-blooded. But only I knew that I wasn't heartless, I just didn't want to lie to myself anymore. Ethan didn't love me, he never truly loved me. What he loved was an obedient wife, a tool person who could be sacrificed for him at any time. When Clara was in danger, his first reaction was to protect her, not me. That was enough. That was sufficient to explain everything. The day before the court hearing, Ethan came to find me again. This time, he didn't stand outside begging bitterly but directly broke in. He stood before me, eyes red, exuding an aura of despair. Stella, let's talk, he said. There's nothing to talk about. I stood up, preparing to leave. He grabbed me, you must listen to me finish. Ethan, let go. I won't let go. He gripped my wrist tightly. Stella, I know you hate me, and I know I was wrong. But can you, for the sake of how much we once loved each other, give me another chance? Loved each other? I looked at him. Ethan, are you sure we ever loved each other? Of course, he said. We've been together for 5 years, married for 3, you said you loved me, and I loved you. Then why, I interrupted him, when the car accident happened, did you choose Clara, not me? He was stunned. I continued, Ethan, do you know? In that instant, I really thought I was going to die. I was holding our child in my arms, watching helplessly as that out-of-control truck rushed toward me. And you, my husband, pushed me away to protect another woman. That was because. He tried to explain. Because of what? I asked. Because Clara is your beloved? Because her position in your heart is more important than mine? Or because, in your eyes, my life and the child's were utterly worthless? No, he said agitatedly. I just panicked, I didn't think that much. Didn't think that much? I laughed. Ethan, the choices people make in the most critical moments are the most genuine. In that moment, you chose Clara, which shows that in your subconscious, she is more important than me. He couldn't speak. I shook off his hand, Ethan, you've lost. Lost because you never truly loved me. And I have finally seen this clearly. No. He shook his head, tears falling non-stop. It's not like that, I love you, I really love you. Then tell me, I asked. If time rewound and that moment came again, would you make the same choice? He opened his mouth but couldn't speak. Because he knew the answer. He would still choose Clara. That was the truth. The cruel truth. Get out, I said. See you in court tomorrow. Stella. He wanted to say something but ultimately said nothing, turning and leaving the room. The moment the door closed, I heard his suppressed crying outside. But I didn't soften. Because I knew some hurts could never be mended. Some emotions could never be salvaged. And between Ethan and me, there was already no possibility. On the day of the hearing, the weather was unusually good. Sunlight streamed through the quartz glass windows, shining on the cold floor, bringing a touch of warmth. But this warmth meant nothing to me. I sat in the plaintiff's seat, looking at Ethan opposite. He wore a black suit, his face haggard, eyes full of bloodshot veins. It seemed he hadn't been doing well during this time. But so what? The trial began. My lawyer first stated the reasons for divorce: the marital relationship had broken down, and the emotions could no longer be repaired. Then, she submitted Dr. Marcus's report as evidence. The judge took the report, read it carefully, brows furrowed. "Mr. Ethan, this report shows that without the parties' consent, you subjected Ms. Stella to illegal hypnosis. What do you have to say about this?" Ethan stood up, his voice hoarse. "Your Honor, I admit I did have Dr. Marcus hypnotize Stella. But it wasn't out of malice, I just didn't want her to live in pain." "So you arbitrarily decided to erase her memories?" the judge asked. Ethan couldn't speak. The judge continued, "Mr. Ethan, regardless of your motives, your actions have constituted an infringement on the parties' personal rights. Moreover, according to the report, this hypnosis has caused severe impact on Miss Stella's physical and mental health." "I know I was wrong," Ethan said. "I'm willing to bear all consequences, willing to compensate, willing to apologize. But I request the judge not to grant the divorce. Stella is my wife, I can't lose her." "Mr. Ethan," the judge said, "marriage is a voluntary union of both parties. If one party firmly requests divorce and has sufficient reasons, the court will respect the party's wishes." "But..." Ethan wanted to say something but was pulled back by his lawyer. The judge looked at me. "Miss Stella, do you have anything to add?" I stood up, surveyed the courtroom, and finally fixed my gaze on Ethan. "Your Honor, I would like to say a few words." "Please speak." I took a deep breath and began recounting my story. 3 months ago, I was 7 months pregnant. That was the happiest time in my life. Every day I anticipated the child's birth, looking forward to our family of 3's future. But all of that was destroyed on that day. I paused, then continued. That day, Clara was in a car accident. Ethan, to save her, pushed me toward the out-of-control truck. I don't blame him for saving someone. What I blame is that in that moment, he chose to sacrifice me and the child. The courtroom was utterly silent. Later, I miscarried. The child died. It was a boy. My voice trembled. The doctor said the child was already formed. If not for that accident, he would have come into this world healthy. Stella. Ethan's voice came from opposite, choked with sobs. I ignored him and continued. After the child died, Ethan didn't share this pain with me. Instead, he found a psychologist to perform illegal hypnosis on me, attempting to make me forget everything. He thought that as long as I forgot, everything could start anew. But he was wrong. Memories can be sealed, but the body remembers. The psyche remembers. I looked at Ethan. The current me wants to vomit upon seeing him and feels dirty upon touching him. This isn't something I can control, it's my body protecting me, telling me this person is dangerous. Therefore, Your Honor, I said, I request the court to grant the divorce. I don't want any compensation, I just want to sever all ties with this person. After speaking, I sat down. The courtroom remained silent, with only Ethan's suppressed cries audible. The judge tapped the gavel. Mr. Ethan, do you have anything else to say? Ethan stood up, tears streaming down his face as he looked at me. Stella, I beg you, don't leave me. I truly know I was wrong. I'm willing to spend a lifetime making it up to you, willing to do anything. Ethan, I interrupted him. You have no chance anymore. Why? He asked desperately. Why can't you give me another chance? I really love you, I can't live without you. Because, I said, I no longer love you. This sentence, like a knife, completely severed the last connection between us. Ethan was stunned, the light in his eyes dimming bit by bit, leaving only despair. The judge tapped the gavel one last time. This court rules to grant the plaintiff Stella's divorce from the defendant Ethan. Just like that, my marriage to Ethan officially ended. Walking out of the court, the sunlight was particularly dazzling. I stood on the steps and took a deep breath. The air of freedom felt wonderful. In the first month after the divorce, I lived exceptionally peacefully. Without Ethan's entanglement, without endless arguments and tears, my life finally returned to normal. I started working again, taking on a new project, busy every day. But I liked this busyness. Because only busyness could make me forget those unpleasant memories. Ethan didn't come to find me again. I heard that after the divorce, he shut himself at home for a whole week without going out. Company affairs were all handed to the vice president to manage. He himself sank into deep self-blame and regret. My friends occasionally mentioned him, with tones of sympathy. "Stella, Ethan is really miserable now. Do you want to?" "No," I always answered. "His life or death has nothing to do with me." Friends sighed, thinking I was too heartless. But only I knew I wasn't heartless, I just didn't want to fall into that painful vortex again. What Ethan owed me, he couldn't repay in a lifetime. 2 months later, I received a package. Inside was a letter and a diary. The letter was written by Ethan, with scrawled handwriting, showing his unstable emotions when writing. "Stella, this is my diary from these 3 months. I'm sending it to you not to make you change your mind, I know that's impossible now. I just want you to know how I've been these 3 months." I opened the diary and flipped through it page by page. The diary recorded his life after the divorce. Every day he regretted his initial choice, regretted what he did to me. He said he dreamed of me every night, dreamed we were still together, dreamed our child was born healthy. But every time he woke, reality slapped him hard, reminding him that those were already lost. In the diary, he wrote, "I now understand what true pain is. It's not losing, but realizing after losing that it was your most precious thing. Stella, I've done many wrong things in this life, but the biggest was hurting you." After reading the diary, I felt nothing. I put it in a drawer and never took it out again. Because I knew Ethan's repentance meant nothing to me. What he lost was the result of his own self-destruction. 3 months later, I heard Ethan was hospitalized. Not for physical illness, but psychological. He suffered from severe depression, shutting himself in the ward all day, unwilling to see anyone. His family found me, hoping I could visit him. "Stella, I know Ethan wronged you, but he's really pitiful now. The doctor says if this continues, he might do something foolish. Just pity him and go see him once," Ethan's mother cried. I looked at her, my heart without any ripples. Ethan's mom, Ethan and I are already divorced. How he is now has nothing to do with me. But she wanted to say more. Moreover, I interrupted her. "When I miscarried back then, where were you? When Ethan performed illegal hypnosis on me, where were you? Now that he's in trouble, you come to me. Don't you think this is ridiculous?" Ethan's mom was stunned. I turned and left, leaving her standing there alone. I'm not cold-blooded, I just don't want to be that fool who gives unconditionally anymore. Ethan chose his beloved, so let him bear the consequences with her. Another month passed, and I heard Ethan was discharged. He didn't stay in the hospital but chose to leave the city. Some said he went abroad, wanting to start anew. Others said he just wanted to escape all the memories of me here. But regardless, he left. And I could finally breathe a sigh of relief completely. Half a year later, my life fully returned to normal. I returned to the workplace, and with my abilities, quickly gained the company's recognition. Projects came one after another, performance soared, and my career entered a golden period. Colleagues said I had changed. Become more independent, stronger, and calmer. "Stella, you're really impressive now," a close colleague said. "It feels like you exude an aura, how to say it, a don't mess with me vibe." I smiled, probably for more experiences. "You and Ethan, really completely over?" she asked cautiously. "Yes," I nodded. "It's over. Then will you find another one?" "I don't know," I said. "Let it be." Actually, I knew clearly in my heart that I might not date again for a long time. Not because I still loved Ethan, but because I needed time to heal myself. That marriage left me with wounds too deep, so deep that I dared not easily trust anyone again. But I wasn't in a hurry. I'm still young, I have plenty of time. One day, the company had a new partner. He was called Lucas, 35 years old, president of an investment company. He was very handsome, with a mature charm in every gesture. The first meeting left a deep impression on me. "Miss Stella, I've long admired your name," he extended his hand, smiling. "I heard you're in charge of this project, I'm looking forward to collaborating with you." I shook his hand. "Mr. Lucas is too polite." In the following months, we met frequently due to the project. Lucas was very professional, efficient in his work, never procrastinating. Moreover, he respected me greatly and never overstepped. Gradually, I found myself beginning to appreciate this man. Not love, just appreciation. Appreciating his abilities, his character, his attitude toward work. At the celebration banquet after the project ended, Lucas suddenly said to me, "Miss Stella, may I invite you to dinner?" I was stunned for a moment. "Aren't we eating now?" He laughed. "I mean, a private dinner. Just the two of us." I looked at him, my heartbeat quickening slightly. "Sure," I said. During that dinner, we talked a lot. Lucas told me he was divorced and had a 5-year-old daughter. His ex-wife, due to personality differences, went abroad after separating, and the daughter lived with him. "So," he said, "I can understand your feelings. Divorce isn't shameful, sometimes, leaving a wrong relationship is a new beginning." I nodded. "You're right. Miss Stella," he suddenly looked at me seriously. "May I pursue you?" I was stunned. Such a direct confession was a first for me. I didn't know what to say. "You don't have to answer now," he said. "You can think about it slowly. I just want you to know I'm serious about you." That night, I lay in bed, thinking for a long time. Lucas was a good person, no doubt about that. Moreover, his feelings for me were sincere, I could feel it. But was I truly ready to start a new relationship? I wasn't sure. The next day, I sent Lucas a message, "I need time." He replied quickly, "I'll wait for you." Just like that, our relationship entered a subtle phase. Neither lovers nor just friends. We would eat together, watch movies together, chat together, but never overstep. Lucas was very patient, he never urged me, nor asked when I could agree. He was like a gentle guardian, quietly accompanying me, waiting for me to slowly open my heart. And I, in this process, slowly healed myself. A year later, I finally said to Lucas, "I'm willing to try." He smiled, his eyes shining, "Thank you for giving me a chance." "But I need to make it clear," I said. "I might not fall in love with you quickly. I need time, a long time." "No problem," he said. "I have plenty of time." Just like that, I started a new romance. Being with Lucas was completely different from Ethan. Lucas wouldn't make me guess his thoughts, wouldn't be hot and cold toward me, and certainly wouldn't sacrifice me for others. He always put me first, respected my wishes, and cared about my feelings. With him, I felt a long-lost sense of security. 2 years later, Lucas and I married. The wedding was simple, inviting only the closest friends and family. I wore a white wedding dress, held Lucas's arm, walked down the red carpet, and accepted everyone's blessings. In that moment, I was truly happy. Not because I married a wealthy man, but because I finally found someone who truly loved me, respected me, and was willing to spend a lifetime with me. After the wedding, someone told me Ethan had come. He stood outside the wedding venue, watching me from afar, his eyes full of regret and despair. But he didn't come in, nor tried to stop the wedding. He just stood there, watched for a long time, then turned and left. Hearing this news, my heart had no ripples. Ethan's appearance, to me, was like a gust of wind, passing and dispersing without leaving any trace. Because I no longer loved him. Completely, utterly, no love left. Post-marriage life was peaceful. Lucas was a good husband and a good father. His daughter liked me a lot and called me Mom. I gradually treated her as my own child, caring for her attentively and accompanying her growth. Sometimes, I would think of the child I once lost. If he were still here, he would be 3 or 4 years old now. Would he call me Mom like Emily and act spoiled in my arms? But I knew those were already impossible. That child had left forever. And the person who caused his death had also completely disappeared from my life. 3 years later, I got pregnant. When we learned the news, Lucas and I were both excited. This was our child, a new life belonging to us. Lucas cared for me cautiously, fearing any accident. And I cherished this child especially. 10 months later, the child was born smoothly. It was a healthy girl. When the nurse placed her in my arms, I cried. Not from pain, but from happiness. This was my child, my daughter. She would grow up healthy, have a complete family, have parents who loved her. She wouldn't, like her brother, leave forever without even getting a glimpse of this world. In that moment, I felt I was finally whole. A few more years passed, and one day, I accidentally encountered Ethan on the street. He looked much older, with many white hairs mixed in, and more wrinkles on his face. He walked alone on the street, his back lonely and desolate. Seeing me, he paused, then slowly walked over. Stella. He called my name, voice hoarse. Ethan. I responded calmly. We stood on the street like that, facing each other in silence. After a long while, he spoke. Are you doing well? Very well, I said. That's good. He smiled, the smile full of bitterness. As long as you're happy. And you? I asked. How are you doing? Me? He laughed self-mockingly. I'm doing terribly. The company went bankrupt, friends all left, now I have nothing. I was silent. But this is all what I deserve, he said. It's my own doing, can't blame others. Ethan, I said. Let past things be past. Live well, take good care of yourself. Stella, his eyes suddenly reddened. Can you forgive me? I looked at him and shook my head. I can't. His tears fell. But I no longer hate you, I said. Ethan, between us, it's already over. You go your way, I live my life, don't meet again in the future. After saying that, I turned and left. Behind me came his choked voice, Stella, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't look back. Because I knew some things, apologies are useless for. Some hurts can never be mended. And Ethan could only spend the rest of his life in the pain he created himself. This was his retribution. Also the ending he deserved.